me how it all began.
It was amazing. An angel appeared in front of me, and I was terrified. But he told me I didn't need to be, because God has a special job for me. He said that I would become pregnant and give birth to the Son of God, to the Messiah.
That seems a bit crazy. What did you say?
Well, I was only just engaged to Joseph, and we weren't even close to being married, so I asked how that could happen since we hadn't been together yet, and he told me that God's Holy Spirit would make me pregnant, just like God had made my relative Elizabeth pregnant, even though she's too old to have kids. I was so honored that God had chosen me.
What did your family think?
Well, God didn't appear to everyone else, like he did to me, so they all thought that I had done something wrong. Even Joseph sent a messenger to tell me that he didn't want to marry me anymore.
I heard that Mary was pregnant and was so disappointed, so I came up with this plan to divorce her privately. I didn't want to embarrass her too much, but also didn't really want to be with her still.
So what did you do?
I went to visit my relative Elizabeth, since she was also pregnant by the power of God. And she told me that she was so happy for me and that she knew I was really carrying a special child.
Mary came to me, and as soon as I saw her, my baby leapt inside me. And I was just filled up with God's Spirit and praised her for her belief in God. And do you know what? It was just so lovely to have someone to talk to about everything that had happened, because my husband couldn't say a word.
Your husband couldn't speak?
Yeah, he couldn't say a word until after the baby was born.
What happened to make you stop talking?
Well, it was my turn to be in the temple, and all of a sudden this angel appeared. And the angel said that myself and Elizabeth were going to have a baby. I mean, at our age, really? So I didn't believe the angel who said we were going to have a son. And as a consequence of that, when I walked out of the temple, I couldn't speak.
He came home from the temple this day and he started going like this at me and trying to make all these signs and make me understand. And he was obviously really, really excited. And I began to understand that something about an angel had come to speak to him, and I was going to have a baby. And he hadn't believed it. Well, I didn't really believe it either, actually. But then it came true, and I thought he'd be able to speak straight away when I got pregnant. But it didn't happen like that. He still couldn't speak.
Is that when Mary came?
And I had some news from my cousin Mary, who was also going to have a baby. So I invited her to come and stay with me. The pain of not being able to have a baby all these years has been terrible, and I was able to talk to her about it. And now that I was going to have one, it was just amazing. But I was also able to share in her pain because she was going to have a baby, but she didn't have a husband and a family to support her, and so she was feeling really sad.
Zechariah, you can speak now. How did that change?
Well, after the baby was born, everybody wanted to call the baby after one of the children in our line. But I knew that the angel had said he should be called John.
So everybody wanted us to name the baby after Zechariah or somebody else in our family. But I knew that that wasn't right. That isn't what God had said.
And I hadn't been able to speak for 9 months, so I desperately tried to use sign language to say, no, we're going to call him John. And the minute I said that, my tongue was freed.
As you can imagine, all our family were quite surprised, really surprised with us. But we just knew that something amazing was going to happen with John's life, and they were just really pleased for us.
So once God freed my tongue, I began to sing praises to him, because I knew that my baby, my son, John, was going to be the prophet who announced the coming of the Messiah, the one who was going to set Israel free and bring us all back to God.
Mary, were you there for this miracle?
No, I left after 3 months because Joseph agreed to marry me.
So an angel appeared to me and told me that Mary's pregnancy wasn't just some random thing. It actually was God that made her pregnant. And that this person that was growing inside of Mary was going to become somebody that saved everyone from their sin. And that felt pretty cool. And the angel told me to call this kid Jesus and to bring it up as my own.
So what happened next?
As soon as we were married, we had to head off to Bethlehem so we could be counted and stuff for the Romans. So I had to head off there with all my family. Mary came along as well.
It was a very long journey, and I couldn't move quickly.
So when we got to Bethlehem, everywhere was so full. We kept on trying to find somewhere to stay, knocking here, there and everywhere, but nobody would let us in, nobody had space. And it was just so annoying, and we were really desperate.
The city was heaving. My husband had already turned away a family because the inn was so overflowing. But when I saw how pregnant the young girl was, well, I couldn't leave her out in the cold, could I?
But then we got to this one inn, we were knocking and the innkeeper came out, told us it was full. But then his wife saw how pregnant Mary was and decided we could stay in their stable, which was pretty good, considering we had nothing.
Our stable isn't amazing, but it's warm, and so I insisted that they stay there. Just as well I did too.
I was just minding my own business in a field, looking after my sheep, when suddenly there was a bright light. It was an angel.
What did it do?
Anyways, then it said a baby had been born that night. It was the Messiah, the Lord, and it was lying in a manger in Bethlehem.
So you ran into Bethlehem.
Me and my mates were so excited, we had to see what was happening. The sky filled with angels, all singing praise to God. We knew the Messiah was sent to save us, and we were fed up of living under the Romans.
Our baby was born the night that we stayed in the stable. But we didn't have anywhere to put him aside from the manger. Thankfully, we had cloths to wrap him in to stay warm. I was so exhausted.
That's when we heard a load of shouting, and I went out and everyone was celebrating. Everyone was dancing and having really fun times, which was a bit annoying when we were trying to get Jesus to sleep.
What was that about?
About midnight, the whole city woke up and everyone was talking about the Messiah who was coming to save us. Quite honestly, I don't really care who's in charge, just as long as I get to keep my inn.
When the shepherds came to us, I couldn't believe it. With all the traveling and everything, I'd almost forgot who our child would be. But this was such a special reminder. I just couldn't believe that God had chosen me to be the mother of his son.
So after 8 days, we took Jesus down to the temple like we're supposed to, and we met some rather strange people down at the temple called Simeon and Anna.
Do you know, I've been waiting my whole life to find the Comforter of Israel. Do you know, God said I wouldn't die before I met the Messiah.
How did you know to go to the temple that day?
Well, you know, I just felt God's Spirit guided me there. He just guided me to the temple. And you know, when I saw the child, I just knew this was the promised one from God. He was going to bring God's salvation to us all.
I couldn't believe it. This man came up to us and blessed Jesus and said that he was going to be a light and give glory to all Israel. I was pretty impressed.
And you know, now I consider my life to be fulfilled. Now I've seen the child who I know has come to save Israel.
Then we met this lovely old woman.
I have not left this temple since my husband died many years ago. God allowed me to be a prophet. I saw Simeon blessing the family. God showed me that I needed to speak to them too.
As soon as she blessed us, she went around telling everyone that Jesus would be the redemption of Jerusalem.
That child will redeem Jerusalem. Just mark my words.
How did you hear about Jesus?
I've been studying the stars for years, and had never seen anything like the one that appeared that night. I spoke with my colleagues right away, and we agreed that it was pointing to the King of the Jews.
How did you decide that?
Stars like that don't just appear. We knew we had to find the one it pointed to, so we could worship him. So we travelled all the way to Jerusalem to speak to King Herod. We thought he would be the one to know about the King of the Jews, seeing as he is a king and a Jew.
Yes, of course they came to me first, because of course I'd be the person that would know. But I was very angry and somewhat confused as well, because I don't have a son that fits that description.
He seemed confused that we asked him.
So I asked the teachers of the law where this king was to be born, and they said in Bethlehem. But who is this king? I'm king!
He told us that the child should have been born in Bethlehem, so he planned to go there.
So I tricked them, because I'm very clever. I told them that I wanted to go and worship this king as well, so they got to come back and see me.
Why did you want to find him?
Well, to get rid of him, of course. I can't have Israel thinking that there is a better king than me.
The star led us to a place that did not seem fit for a king. It was humble and simple, with a carpenter's shop at the side.
So just last week, these men showed up with some gifts for Jesus. They came from some far-off place, can't remember now, but it was pretty impressive how far they came.
We brought in the gifts we had and presented them before the child. He was only a toddler as we expected, but we still gave our gifts.
I couldn't believe it. Here in our own home were these fancy, wise men from far away, and they came and presented gifts to Jesus that were gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Those are gifts fit for a king.
What does all this mean to you?
God is giving Jerusalem a second chance to be close to him.
So God is in the process of redeeming Israel, and we get to have another chance to be the nation that is close to God.
God has blessed us. He is using the humble to bless the whole earth, just like he promised to Abraham so long ago.
The King of the Jews has come, and he will change the world.
Mary, my wife, had given birth to Jesus, who we knew to be the Son of God, and he would come to save us from our sins.
Well, do you know what? I've learnt that there's just absolutely no limit to what God can do. He is just incredibly powerful, more powerful than nature itself. And he cares for even ordinary people like me and Zachariah. Ordinary people on the earth everywhere.
What does this mean? It means a challenge to my rule, and I will find him.
We're going to be free. The Messiah has come to free Israel from Rome.
The world is changing. Maybe people have seen angels, maybe not. But one thing, that child is going to grow up and do something really big, and the world will get to hear about it.
Well, it's great because I know that God has kept his promise to me, that he will keep his promise, and it won't just be for Israel, it will be for everyone.